Willkommen in Episode 2 Dark Matter Autobahn. Hihihihi.
Necrology, the beginning of an ending. Michael Wenas knows where the bodies are buried. Pull up a chair, things are about to get varied. Here to expose all the hidden truths. Abracadabra, no more manganea.
Welcome back to Necrology. Last episode, we talked about the name, the four letters, the divine marriage hidden inside the breath of Yehovah, the switching of Apophis and Osiris, the Alpha and the Omega reversed, the last made first. And I promised we'd keep pulling the thread, so today, we're going somewhere that might make you raise an eyebrow, or both of them. We're gonna talk about the Omegaverse. Yes, that Omegaverse. Now, if you're unfamiliar, the Omegaverse is a fan fiction and speculative fiction world-building system originally born in queer creative spaces that organizes society around a biological hierarchy: alphas, betas, and omegas. Alphas are dominant, betas are middle, omegas are supposedly at the bottom. Supposedly. Because here's the thing about the Omegaverse that I think most people miss when they dismiss it as just a genre trope. It is at its core a mythological system. It is its own cosmology, and like all cosmologies, if you press on it hard enough, it starts to say something profound about power, about the body, about what we consider sacred. Let's start with the hierarchy itself. Alpha, Beta, Omega. The Omega is placed last, which is lowest in social order, that is, most vulnerable, most subject to the forces around them, and yet, and this is the thing that the best Omegaverse storytelling has always understood intuitively, the Omega is the most cosmologically significant figure in the system. Why? Well, because the Omega is the one who transforms. In mythology, this is not a new idea. The figure who is placed last, who is dismissed, underestimated, made subordinate, is almost always the one through whom the divine acts. Think of every trickster god, every youngest child in a fairy tale who wins the kingdom. Think of Osiris himself, murdered and dismembered and scattered across the earth, and then reassembled by Isis, resurrected, made eternal, the last made first. The Omega is, esoterically speaking, the Osiris position, the one who descends, the one who is acted upon by the world, and through that, rises. Now, in queer fandom spaces, something remarkable happened with this archetype. The community didn't just accept the Omega as a passive figure, they invented the power bottom. The figure who holds ultimate agency from within, a position of apparent submission, who drives the dynamic, who determines its meaning, who contains within themselves the transformative force of the entire encounter. This is not a subversion of the archetype. This is the archetype correctly understood. Because if we go back to our sacred geometry from the first episode, in the Tetragrammaton, the feminine He's are the letters that complete the name. Without them, the masculine Yod and Vav are just unvoiced breath. They cannot speak themselves into existence. The feminine principle is not passive in the Tetragrammaton. It is the vessel that makes speech possible. The power bottom, esoterically, is a He. And then there's the question of the body itself. One of the most radical elements of Omegaverse world building is the dismantling of who can carry life. Male Omegas who are pregnant, female Alphas who don't. The entire architecture of who bears, who births, who transforms their body into a threshold between existence and non-existence, completely unmoored from what the mundane world calls natural. And I want to sit with that for a second, because in esoteric traditions across cultures, the pregnant body, regardless of who carries it, has always been understood as a hierophany, a manifestation of the sacred, the body that holds two souls, the body that exists simultaneously as one and more than one, the body that is, quite literally, a living coincidence of opposites. Carl Jung called this the Conjunctio, the sacred union of opposing forces within a single vessel. The alchemists spent centuries trying to produce it in a flask. The Omegaverse, well, the Omegaverse puts it in a body. And here's where it circles back, because it always circles back. You know, it's the Ouroboros. In our switch name, Yehovah, Osiris comes before Apophis, the resurrected, the transformed, the one who descended into death and returned. He comes first. The chaos force is made last. The Omega in the Omegaverse is the figure of Osirian descent, placed last by the hierarchy, subject to the forces of the world, and yet the one who carries life, the one who transforms, the one who, through the sacred mechanics of the divine hierogamy, makes resurrection possible. The hierarchy says Omega is last. The name says the last shall be first. The power bottom says, I know. I think queer people have always understood this at a cellular level, that the position the world assigns you, the last, the lowest, the most liminal, is not a diminishment. It is, if anything, the closest position to the sacred. We have always been Omegas in someone else's hierarchy, and we have always known quietly what that actually means. That's where we are today on Necrology with Michael Wenas. Let's go deeper. The accuser is fuel for the Godspeed. Dark matter is fuel for the light speed. As above, so below. Here in Necrology, we talk about endings. I want to do something a little different. I want to talk about the Metatron-Sandalphon mechanism. Let me start with the physics, because the physics comes first. The paper that I wrote proposes a two-phase hypothetical framework for how a sufficiently advanced civilization, a Kardashev-type 4 civilization, might deliberately halt the accelerating expansion of the universe. Phase 1 generates the arrest. Phase 2 handles what happens to all the energy afterward. Two distinct mechanisms, two distinct problems, two names. Now, why Metatron and Sandalphon specifically? Why not Phase A and Phase B? Why not Mechanism Alpha and Mechanism Beta? Here's the honest answer. because the geometry of these two archangels drawn from Kabbalistic and esoteric tradition turned out to be extraordinarily useful as heuristic scaffolding for the quantum graph topologies I needed to build. Let me explain what I mean by that. In Kabbalistic tradition, Metatron and Sandalphon are described as a paired indivisible dynamic, two poles of the same axis. Metatron is associated with Kether, the crown, the highest sphere, the source of emanation, the macrocosmic blueprint, expansion, the infinite reaching outward. And in the visual symbol most associated with Metatron, Metatron's cube, you have 13 circles connected by 78 lines, elegantly encoding the geometry of all 5 platonic solids simultaneously. It's one of the most information-dense topological structures in the history of sacred geometry. Sandalphon, by contrast, anchors Malkut, the kingdom, the earth, the lowest sphere, crystallization, material manifestation, the infinite arriving finally as physical matter. Sandalphon's geometry is the hexahedron, the platonic cube, the most stable, dense, grounded of the platonic solids, the element of earth made mathematical. Now translate that directly into cosmological physics. Phase 1 of my mechanism, the Metatron phase, is precisely about expansion being arrested. Schoton's hypothetical dark sector particles derived from Ernest Mach's cotogenic model are cultivated along the cosmic filament network, the gravitational superhighways connecting galaxy clusters across hundreds of millions of light years. Those scotons are then converted into lepton pairs, electron-positron pairs, which annihilate and generate a negative pressure component inside the Friedmann equations. The negative pressure opposes dark energy. It slows and eventually halts the universe's metric expansion. That is Metatron, the macrocosmic wave, the crown-level intervention, the mechanism that reaches the entire observable universe. But then what? Energy cannot simply persist as an infinite static potential. Conservation laws forbid it. The annihilation energy has to go somewhere. It has to collapse, condense, manifest. That is Sandalphon. Phase 2. The Sandalphon mechanism models how that immense trapped energy cascades gravitationally downward through a 39-node topology, organized in layers that mirror the Kabbalistic descent from pure emanation into physical reality. From the archangelic layer through Yetzirah, through Asiya, all the way down to Malkut, the sink. The absolute dimensional bottom, the point where energy stops flowing and crystallizes permanently into stable baryonic matter, primordial black holes, ultra-dense dark matter cores, hypermassive baryonic clusters. The energy that was used to stop the universe ends up becoming the universe. That is Sandalphon. Grounding, crystallization, the infinite made physical. And here's the part I find genuinely beautiful. When I needed to parameterize the quantum networks, when I needed to decide how many nodes each simulation would have, the Kabbalistic gematria values give me optimized network sizes that are not arbitrary. Metatron's association with the divine name with Tetragrammaton carries a gematria value of 26. So the Metatron quantum circuit uses a 26-node dual Metatron's cube architecture. Sandalphon's association with Adonai, Lord of the Earth, carries a gematria value of 65. And 26 plus 13 equals 39. So the Sandalphon topology runs on 39 nodes, which is Hebrew gematria for Hashem Echad, mirroring the mathematical union of the infinite and the manifested physical. 26 plus 65 equals 91, which is Hebrew gematria for Amen. 60 steps reflecting how many strokes of fiery rot received as witnessed by Elisha ben Abuya, and 26 nodes of Metatron equals 86, which is the Hebrew gematria of Elohim. 33 steps, the age of Jesus Christ and the highest degree of the great work, and 39 notes of Sandalphon equals 72, which is the amount of names within Shem HaMepharash. 60 steps of Metatron and 33 steps of Sandalphon equals 93, which is the Greek gematria of agape or thelema. 26 notes of Metatron and 39 notes of Sandalphon equals to 65, which is the Hebrew gematria of Adonai. These are not decorative numbers. They produce graph topologies that work, that run clean simulations of cosmic stagnation and matter crystallization without producing mathematical singularities. Sacred geometry, turns out, is surprisingly good at solving NP-hard quantum graph optimization problems. And you know what? I'll take that. So, when you see the Metatron-Sandalphon mechanism on the cover of the Integrative Perspectives of Social and Science journal, here's what it means. Metatron is the wave that freezes the expanding universe. Sandalphon is the protocol that grounds that frozen energy into stable physical matter. Together, they describe a complete cosmological engineering timeline, from a civilization's first manipulation of dark sector physics, all the way to a crystallized static universe. 2 archangels, 2 phases, 1 framework. I named it after angels because angels, at least in the Kabbalistic sense, are not supernatural beings floating on clouds. They are functional principles. They are the names we give to cosmic forces that operate at scales beyond ordinary human comprehension. Metatron governs the macrocosmic blueprint. Sandalphon governs the grounding of that blueprint into matter. That is, almost word for word, what my 2 mechanisms do. The name isn't poetry dressed up as science. Really, it's science that happened to find its most precise description in a very old symbolic language. The Metatron-Sandalphon mechanism is about as audacious as physics gets. We're talking about harnessing the entire dark matter filament network of the observable universe, cultivating hypothetical dark sector particles along cosmic highways, spanning hundreds of millions of light years, converting them into lepton pairs, smashing those pairs together hard enough to push back against the very fabric of space-time. It is not a small ask, but I think that's exactly why it matters to write about it. Let me be honest though, about where we actually stand. Kardashev gave us a useful measuring stick in 1964. Type 1 civilization means you harness all the energy available on your home planet. Type 2 means your star, and Type 3 means your entire galaxy. And the extensions to this framework, which theorists like Max Tegmark have elaborated on, put a Type 4 civilization at the scale of the entire universe. We are currently, generously, sitting at about 0.73 on that scale. We haven't made it to Type 1, we are still burning fossil fuels, we are still arguing about power grids. The gap between us and a Type 4 civilization is not just large, it's almost incomprehensibly so. And I think it's important to just say that out loud without hedging, because pretending the gap is smaller than it is does not serve us. Really, it only flatters us, and flattery is not useful here. So the essay that generative AI helped me with, published on Vocal's Media Futurist segment, isn't really about the paper's equations, it's about the roadmap. The steps that connect where we are now to where the paper imagines we could eventually be. And the first step is so unglamorous that most people don't want to talk about it. Our own planet's core. Sitting underneath us, right now, is a churning mass of liquid iron nickel, heated by radioactive decay and primordial compression, running at temperatures above 5,000 degrees Celsius. The total thermal energy stored down there is estimated at around 10 to the 31st joules. For context, that's roughly the same order as the sun's entire annual energy output. We are sitting on it. And geothermal energy today is a rounding error in global energy production. Before we reach for dark matter highways, let's be honest about what we haven't tapped right beneath our feet. A civilization that has genuinely mastered its own planet's internal energy, not just tapping a fraction of a percent of it, but truly mastering it, has earned the right to start thinking about the next step. Step 2 is the solar neighborhood, the asteroid belt, helium-3, I think, on the moon, and the gas giants. Fusion fuel, we're still learning to properly ignite. And I want to be clear, this isn't just about resources. Spreading our presence across multiple worlds is redundancy. It is insurance. It is what gives us the runway to make the catastrophic mistakes we'll inevitably make while reaching further out, without those mistakes ending the story entirely. Step 3 is where things get properly speculative but no longer outlandish. A Dyson swarm, or Dyson sphere, a distributed shell of energy collecting structures orbiting the sun, gives us access to roughly 3.8 times 10 to the 26th watts. That is the sun's total output, every photon. At that point, we've crossed into Type 2. We are no longer a planetary civilization, we are a stellar one. And from that foundation, and only from that foundation, does the dark sector stop being metaphysics and start being an engineering problem. And that's where the paper comes in. The scotogenic model, the cosmic filament network, the modified Friedmann equations, the Metatron phase arresting expansion, the Sandalphon phase crystallizing the released energy into stable baryonic matter. But in the essay, I wanted to push one step further than the paper itself did, because there's a speculative application I find genuinely compelling that I didn't explore deeply enough in the published version, which is propulsion. If you can manipulate dark sector particles, if you can steer the annihilation of scotons along the dark matter filament network, you don't just have a mechanism for halting cosmic expansion, you have an energy source and a thrust mechanism that operates along the same gravitational infrastructure that structures the entire universe. Those filaments are the cosmic web's highway system. Navigation along them, powered by controlled annihilation reactions, is about as close to a warp lane as physics currently lets us imagine without abandoning known laws entirely. That's worth a paper on its own someday, I think. And then there's the sun. Our star has a lifespan in roughly 5 billion years. It goes red giant. Everything we've built here ends, unless we've left. But with genuine mastery over the dark sector, with the ability to generate and manipulate matter at cosmological scales, the question of artificially sustaining stellar fusion stops being science fiction. Could the mechanisms in this paper, sufficiently advanced, feed enough energy and matter back into a dying star to extend its life? I think that question is worth asking. Seriously, not only rhetorically. I want to be clear about what the paper is and what it isn't. The scotogenic model is real physics. The DC observations on dark energy are real and actively shaking up the standard model right now. The Fermi-Lat baselines are real, but the Metatron-Sandalphon framework itself is a theoretical construction. It's explicitly speculative. It's a structured, computationally explored one, but still a construction nonetheless. What I hope it offers is something more valuable than just another physics paper, a sense of scale, perhaps. A reminder that the universe is not a backdrop to human history, it is an active, evolving system with a fate. And that fate is not fixed. We live at a moment where the question of whether dark energy is a rigid constant or something more dynamic is being interrogated by instruments returning data that genuinely surprises people. We live at a moment where quantum computing is moving from curiosity to infrastructure. We live at a moment where the Kardashev framework isn't just a thought experiment, it's something we can actually place ourselves on precisely and feel the weight of the distance ahead. The gap between 0.73 and Type 4 is immense, but I believe we're made in the image of a creator. And creators, stewards of creation, have a responsibility to engineer and expand, responsibly and ambitiously, with eyes open to both the scale of what we don't yet know and the extraordinary specificity of what we're already beginning to understand. The first step across any immense gap looks the same. You just have to believe the other side exists. The paper isn't a blueprint, it's a glimpse. And sometimes, a glimpse is enough to point the way. I'm Michael Wenas, this is Necrology. I'll see you on the next segment.
Michael Wenas knows where the bodies are buried. Pull up a chair, things are about to get varied. Here to expose all the hidden truths. Abracadabra, no more manganea.
So, for this episode's final segment, we're laying to rest something that's been on life support for a while now. Now, before you reach for your phone to leave an angry voicemail, hear me out. Because I want to talk about something that's dominating every boardroom, every tech conference, every breathless headline right now, which is generative AI. And I want to ask a question nobody seems to want to sit with. Who does this actually serve? Here's the thing about generative AI, and I mean the technology itself. Stripped off the venture capital and the shareholder calls, it's genuinely extraordinary. Models that can assist with medical diagnosis in underserved rural communities, tools that could reduce bureaucratic load for social workers, teachers, public defenders, system that deployed intelligently and collectively could model climate solutions, optimize energy grids, reduce waste across supply chains. Under a socialist framework where infrastructure is publicly owned, where the surplus generated by automation flows back to the people who created the conditions for it, generative AI could be one of the most emancipatory technologies in human history. Environmentally, publicly coordinated compute could be powered by renewable energy without the pressure to cut corners for quarterly profits. Professionally, rather than eliminating jobs and pocketing the difference, you redistribute the hours, you work less and you get to live more. But under capitalism, generative AI is a tool for consolidating power. It's surveillance infrastructure, it's a weapon for wage suppression dressed up in a chat interface. The same technology with a completely different outcome, depending entirely on who owns it and who it answers to. Under capitalism, it definitely does not answer to the people nor to environmental concerns, which is very, very concerning. And here's where I want to push back on something. A trap a lot of well-meaning people fall into. The instinct when you realize a system is rotten is to opt out entirely. Smash the loom, boycott the algorithm, refuse the machine, stick it to the man. I understand the impulse, but I would argue that smashing the spools, withdrawing, abstaining, going off grid and protest mostly just removes you from the conversation. The machine keeps spinning and the ruling class keeps ruling. It's not sticking it to the man. The more useful tradition, and this really goes far back than you might think, it goes back further than you might think, is hanging the ruling class by the noose they gave you. Use the tools of the system against the system itself. Work within the contradictions, and you should understand that as a Marxist. Don't boycott the printing press. Print pamphlets. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism. Nihil. None. The phone you're listening to this on, the coffee in your hand, somewhere in the chain, someone was exploited. That's not a reason for paralysis nor guilt. It's a reason to stop individualizing systemic problems and start thinking collectively and strategically. And if you're an American, I really want you to understand this. It's a reason to stop individualizing systemic problems and start thinking collectively and strategically. So practically speaking, what does that look like with AI? A few things worth knowing. First, privacy preserving use. If you're going to use commercial AI tools, you don't have to hand them everything. Use them without logging in where possible. Many platforms offer API access or have settings that opt you out of training data collection. Read the fine print, use temporary sessions, compartmentalize what you share. Second, and this is the one I'm genuinely excited about, run your own. We are right now at a moment where you can run a capable, uncensored large language model on a USB drive. No cloud, no corporate intermediary, no terms of service designed by a legal team in Silicon Valley. Projects like Ollama, LM Studio, and Llamaphile let you pull open-weight models, Llama, Mistral, Gemma, Quen, and others, directly onto your own hardware. Many of these are small enough to run on a mid-range laptop, some fit on a thumb drive. You can fork them, modify them, share them. The repos are on GitHub, publicly available right now today. This is not a fringe hacker thing anymore. This is genuinely accessible, and it matters. Because a model that runs locally, that you control, that nobody can remotely update or lobotomize or monetize, that's a fundamentally different political object than a subscription service. Is it as polished? Sometimes not. But does it matter? Weigh that against what you're willing to give up with your data. Capitalism will not save us from the problems that capitalism created. And yes, I'm talking to you, the so-called progressives who are still defending IP law even though it's private property, but I digress. And the technology it's currently building in its current ownership structure will more likely deepen those problems than solve them. But the technology itself, the underlying capacity, that belongs to all of us. It was built on publicly funded research, on scraped human creative work, on labor that was never compensated. We're allowed to take it back. We're allowed to use it on our own terms. Necrology is about naming what's dying. And tonight, I want to suggest that what's dying, slowly and painfully, and definitely not without violence, is the idea that the market will sort this out. That innovation left to capital will produce flourishing. It won't. But we might. That's our show. I'm Michael Wenas. Stay critical, stay organized, and I'll see you at the next funeral.